Welcome to Crowning Connections Teal Talk. This is Rob Clemons, and we are at Coastal Carolina Brooks Stadium. This is amazing, guys. I mean, I know the fans can't see this because they're looking at the back of this, but I've got the best viewpoint in the house, guys. I mean, we're looking at the stadium, the beautiful teal-colored grass, I guess we could call it. So just a beautiful day in Conway, South Carolina. Teal turf. Yeah, we like it. Anyway, as usual, I have my guest host, Denielle Van Dyke, and Cobi Williams with us. And today we've got I'm a little excited. I'm a little nervous, actually, because we got a legend with us. We got none other than Matt Hogue. And I'll tell you what, man, you've done so much great stuff, so we look forward to having you on the show today.
Well, this is an absolute honor, and I appreciate what all you guys do for the university as well, with the ambassadorship and the way that you promote our brand. And this is a real treat. Looking forward to it.
Wow, great stuff. Well, we're going to dig deep today. Get prepared to cry. I got some tissues on the side if you need. I'm kidding. It's not that kind of a show. But anyway, well, guys, as we normally do, I want to get started off with a little bit about what's happening at Coastal. So I'm going to start off today with Cobi. We're going to do a little happenings with Cobi. What's happening, bud?
That's awesome. Great to see everybody today. So happenings with Cobi. So the football season started, and I've been going to literally every single game for the past 5 years, ever since I started, going to school here at Coastal.
Now, Cobi, every game or every home game?
Every home game.
Because I was about to give
that
you
was
bad props.
Actually, that would be really cool if I was going to every game.
I know, right?
And this season, these past 3 games have been absolutely amazing, the fan wise. I mean, my seats are over on the other side of the stadium, and I can see these the additional seats that were added on a couple years ago, and they're full. The first game, the Army game, was full, and we have fans sit in those seats consistently the next 2 games. I love it. I mean, it's awesome, and I love the energy. The student section's full of students this year. And I like the past couple seasons, and I love it. It's awesome.
Well, now I'm going to jump into that. I was talking to Andrew Cook the other day, and we did a little preview of the game coming up, and he was talking about how important it is to get student and fan involvement.
Yep.
Because there's nothing like for a football team when you're out there and you need that defensive stop, and you got the crowd cheering, making it a little bit hard on the offense. So we just need more of that. And I'll tell you what got me in the last game. When it was almost like somewhere near the late third, early fourth quarter, and our team started dancing on the sideline. There's a special moment of the game where they start dancing.
It was awesome.
They are getting us pumped up, and I think we need to get them more pumped up than they're getting us. But everybody's going crazy, and it may not be a coincidence, but that was the turning point of the game. I think when they got fired up with the dance moves, all of a sudden that turnovers started happening.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
It was awesome. I mean, I'm energized. I love it, man. It's great to have the athletic director here for the university and talk about sports in this environment. So I love it. Super
stuff. Well, I appreciate that, Cobi, and of course Denielle. I mean, it's gonna be hard to top that. How many games have you gone to, Dan? No,
one. I got to go to the first one. It was the first sold out one that's ever happened in Coastal history, right?
Yeah, of the new expanded stadium.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was. You could definitely feel the energy for sure. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is just how awesome the school has been about alumni relations and just making sure that the alumni of this school are informed about everything that's going on and all the great things that are happening right here on campus. So I definitely keep up to date with all the emails that come through and everything. And one of the ones that I've gotten most recently is that they're actually looking for nominations for alumni and young alumni of the year, which is pretty exciting. So I know we have talked on this show in particular, just so many amazing alumni and people that are involved with Coastal Carolina University. So I just wanted to take my moment to just really tell people to remember to, put in your nominations for anyone that you think has had a great impact on the school that's an alumni of Coastal Carolina University, just because I know that I, in particular, for the homecoming games and everything, love seeing, who gets chosen every year whenever they make those announcements. I think it's usually at the homecoming games, right? I believe it is.
Yeah.
It was last year anyway, or they did some sort of special ceremony there anyway. So it's really awesome being able to see that and see the impact that people have on the community and, what all these amazing alumni of Coastal Carolina University are out there and doing, whether it be here in South Carolina or, all across the United States. Some people are even international. So It's just really cool to see and just to follow up on that.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but for just a minute when she was talking about that, I thought she was going to say, and I just wanted to take this moment to say, vote Denielle. It really sounded like you were going there. And I was going to be like, man,
I've still got some time to make my mark.
Oh, okay, got you. All right, fair enough. Now, how do you qualify as a young alumni? I just kind of want to know. What's that?
That one's within having graduated within the last 15 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the boat's still for you, Rob.
Oh, boy, don't get her started now. She always likes to pick on me for my...
You could still do the regular.
I was about to say,
at your age.
I thought she was about to say some kind of a grandpa alumni thing or something. I was going to get really upset, but well done, Denielle.
I think Cobi brought it up this time. It wasn't even me.
I know,
it was
man.
totally
It was
Cobi.
subtle. It was
Are you
subtle.
guys
I like
starting
that,
a
yeah.
movement against me? I'm going to go ahead and say.
I'm all about outrage. Loving it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, Denielle. And that is good. Everybody place your nominations, and that's something we need to do. Vote Denielle in 2022, right?
There's Cluck Norris right here, guys.
And Cluck Norris.
Exactly.
Well, that's definitely got you in the Loris Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
But, for Coastal.
Chickens, it's the same thing.
One thing that I always
Cousin
love.
of the Chanticleer.
Yeah, he is. He definitely is. One thing I always love is that, Coastal, I just feel like we're a school that we're always doing stuff. And for all the technology we do, look at this, guys. We still got a newspaper here.
Loving it.
This is
student run.
Like, do the students even look at this? Or are they just like, what is this stuff right now?
I've read it. I mean, every single year
Well,
I've been here,
yes.
I'm loving it. I
Okay.
mean, it's and I know it's popular. They stock it at the Wall College, and it's always gone after a day.
So good, right?
It's awesome.
This is the Chanticleer paper, and I just think it's really cool that there's so many different mediums that we can still get out to the fans and everything. So very cool. Well, without further ado, today we are really and I honestly do mean blessed to have such a great guest on, and we've had so many great guests on the show so far. But if you ever want to talk about some great sports and you want to talk about somebody who's done so much for the college, we have none other than the voice of the Chanticleers and none other than Matt Hogue. And Matt, Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics, and I know you had a long title. What's the full title there? You know, right?
Yeah, VP for Intercollegiate Athletics and University Recreation.
Very
is
nice.
what it's transitioned to in the last couple of years.
Wow, your title is so long. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. You must have a lot to do.
Honestly, yeah, I thought it was going to be I thought it was a short one. I apologize about that.
Yeah, it is quite a bit, but fortunately, some of the additional divisions, the University Recreation, I'm fortunate that Jody Davis, who's a veteran of this campus, oversees that area, so it doesn't require a whole lot of day-to-day oversight.
Yeah.
We also have the Hackler course is under our wing as well, and there we're also fortunate to have someone who is coastal through and through, and Chuck Johns that runs the course, and of course his University Stitch program over there as well. So those are two big areas that have a lot going on, but for me, I don't have to worry too much about those. So they're all kind of folded under, and that was done primarily to create some synergy in some areas that made some sense. Like for instance, the golf course, they oversee assistants in the sports turf area that works on our fields and maintains our playing surfaces. So it made sense to kind of have that wrapped under athletics. And then we also have a tremendous amount of overlap with University Recreation, with intramurals, club sports. And as we expand facilities and build new facilities, we want those to be capable of hosting those students as well, which we're already doing in some cases. So it seemed like a good fit to kind of get everything in the same boat.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Matt, you've been with the university, affiliated with the university for quite some time. For those of you, and most of us, I dare say, probably have heard the name Matt Hogue. But take us back to the beginning. How'd you get involved? Kind of to give us a little idea of your background.
Yeah, so I arrived here in 1997, actually. I was hired then by athletic director Buddy Sasser, who's a name that obviously has been well attached to the university through the years. His namesake's on our Athletics Hall of Fame, and from Conway, was the legendary high school coach for Conway back in the 60s, and then eventually moved into the college ranks. But he was the athletic director at that time, and the one thing that I wanted to do, I had been in the media in Columbia. I'd hosted an afternoon talk show on a sports station. I'd called play-by-play. I'd been doing a lot of that through college, for many years. And then, unfortunately, I had a great situation, actually. Had a 2-hour talk show every afternoon, FM sports station in Columbia. First sports station, by the way, in the country that was FM.
Wow.
All sports, 24/7. We put that on the air. And, unfortunately, after a couple of years, mainly because the niche was so new in terms of the programming. It couldn't get off the ground from an advertising standpoint. So we were all kind of pushed out and went our separate ways as it turned into Beach Boogie and Blues of all things, right?
Good figure.
So at that point, I really wanted to focus on calling games, play-by-play, which was my first love, and it's still something that is kind of my thing. So I kind of was starting to look around, like where maybe some opportunities existed, and one popped up here, and Buddy said, well, hey, we also need somebody to come in and work in sports information, and they needed an assistant in that area. So they created a position at that time that melded both. I would call the games, which at that time was only basketball, and then also work with Wayne White, who's another Coastal grad, who was our media relations director at that time, and became his assistant. And that just got me embedded into the athletic department, and from that time, I just kind of kept moving into different roles. After a couple of years in that role, I got more involved in marketing and external affairs, and then as the department continued to grow, started supervising sports. And then, of course, football came along about 6 years after that, and really the planning for it started in 2000, 99, 2000. So that just added a whole extra dynamic. Had a couple of opportunities to, pursue some other things at that time, but really wanted to stay here because I could see there were a lot of new things and the vision was moving in the right direction. So after, a few years in the athletic department, we got football launched, continued to call the games, and then had an opportunity in 2009 actually to shift over to a non-athletic role for the university as an associate vice president in marketing and communications. So in that role, I oversaw advertising of the university. We went through a rebrand at that time, so the logo that you see now, the Athenaeum logo, that actually happened when that division was created, and I moved over. That was back in 2009-10. Oversaw our licensing program at that point as well, trademark licensing. So did that for 4 or 5 years, continued to call games, and really, that was a great setup. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I was very happy with all of that. And then the way I've always looked at it here in my long association, which is now stretched over 25 years, is it's almost when the university has said, hey, this is what we need from you, I've always kind of answered that call of duty, if you will.
Exactly.
Apologies to our military folks. Don't want to, draw any correlations to being the same thing, but that's kind of the way I would describe it. And, here's 2014 rolls around. There's an opening in the athletic department for the athletic director, and Dr. DeCenzo said, hey, would you be interested in taking on the interim role? And I felt like it was that next turning point. So I jumped in and did it. And then after, a little bit less than a year, had the opportunity to move into the permanent role, and here we are, close to 9 years later.
Wow.
So I had hung up my headset, so I ceased calling games at that time. In
Probably
2014.
bittersweet there, right?
Absolutely, and I think something I'll probably do again, maybe down the road. But didn't call games anymore, and came over here, and what an incredible period it's been with what we've been able to accomplish in that time. It's it's been a great story.
Yeah, no, that's a very great story, and I can tell you, I think there's so many people who would love to be doing what you're doing. I know it's a challenging job, but just to be able to work in something you love, because I've my understanding is you've always been a sports fan.
Sure.
Do you ever find yourself when you're watching a game and you're not calling the game, that in your head you're still calling it? Is that what?
Well, yeah, I think so. I guess my mentality's changed a little bit. I always tell people, when I was calling games, you were so focused on preparing for the game, knowing the names, knowing the numbers, the stats, all of the things that you wanted to be prepared to, convey during the course of a broadcast. And you always wanted to be over-prepared. So if there's something you didn't mention, that's fine, but you wanted to have all of that at your fingertips. And then what would really happen is, especially with the opponents, is you would kind of have to wash that out after that game and get ready for the next one. And if you were talking about basketball or baseball, you were repeating that process even more often. I think in the athletic director role, though, it's become more of a the other things that I know about the athletes. It's not so much what number are they wearing or how many touchdowns do they have or points that they scored, but what are they accomplishing academically? What are maybe some of the things that they bring to the table from their perspective that we need to be mindful of and listen to. Have they gone through a tough time maybe with an injury or something else? So it's a little bit more of a human connection maybe than it was when you were calling the game. And that's the part that's really cool because it's kind of shifted, to where you're looking at it from that perspective. But and there really aren't a lot of times, during the course of a football game day, there's so much we have going on. I might be able to really focus and watch a quarter.
Right.
A lot of times
right.
I have to go back after the game. All right, well, let's go back and refresh, look at the stats. Let's see what kind of really happened. I think I know what happened in most every case, but there's so many things that are happening on a game day that I have to go back and kind of refresh a little bit.
It is kind of, I think anybody who's been to a game live and you don't have the commentary in front of you and the stats in front of you, and you get to the end of the game and you look at a guy and you're like, man, he put up 150 yards. I didn't even realize. I mean, does that even happen to you sometimes?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You kind of get a feel for, some of the turning points in the game and game flow, that sort of thing. But you don't really know what's really happened on that stat sheet until you go back later and check it out. But I'm not as connected to what's happening with the numbers as much anymore. It's are we winning? Are we progressing as a program? And you look at it maybe a little bit more like what a coach would.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about winning as a program, and I think I understand what you mean. But could you describe that a little bit further as far as winning as a program? Does it go into so much of the student grades, their experience here? I mean, what's the best way you would define as winning?
Well, I think it all starts with the student-athlete experience, and I think that's something that's become a lot more. I don't know if scrutinized is the right word, but it's something that's much more top of mind than maybe it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago or so. There's so much more happening now in a student's life, any student really, not just a student athlete, but there's so much more happening. There's so much more connected minute by minute to what's happening to them, their friends, their social groups, whatever it is. And and that creates pressure points. So the holistic way that you look at a student athlete's journey is crucially important. Whether it's again what's the strength and conditioning they're receiving, what's the the training and medical attention that they receive should they be injured or to keep them from getting injured, academic advisement. There are all these different pillars that we are kind of injecting into that experience to help them eventually graduate from Coastal and be able to go be, really productive citizens in our world.
Yeah.
The athletics part's it's gonna run its course, right? One way or the other, for the star or for the athlete that maybe doesn't play as much. Eventually, the game is gonna end. And it's what you're doing after that, which is really the key. And I think we've had a tremendous record through the years of athletes that have come through this university that have gone on to do amazing things in life, career, business, entrepreneurship, whatever it may be. And that's ultimately the finish line that you want to get everybody to. So I think we have to spend a lot of time each day being mindful of what are those key pillars and what are we doing to support them.
I mean, that's an amazing dialogue, and I could go so many directions with what you just said, so I'm just going to kind of start unpacking it like this, and I'll start with a really easy one. Did you get to see the game last night? C.J. Brewer out there doing some things with the Bills. He's getting on the field and playing against Derrick Henry. What did you think? Did you get a chance to watch it last night?
Yeah. We got word of that earlier in the day, that he had been elevated up to an active position last night, and what a great young man. And I think he really, CJ is one of those guys that really embodies kind of what I'm talking about. He got the most out of his experience here. And he didn't have, a red carpet to become an active NFL player either. He signed as a free agent. But I think he showed the Bills what he's made of and what those intangibles are that he has beyond his playing skill and ability. And that's what got him considered to be, on their practice squad, to still be a part of their organization. And then that opportunity came, and he was able to, to move up. And he's playing on arguably the best team in the league now.
Oh my goodness,
so,
yeah.
It's a great testament to our program and what he meant and the leadership that he displayed while he was here. And CJ is one of those guys that he probably could tell every player on the field where they need to be and what they need to do besides his position.
Man.
And that's valuable, in a league. The NFL is not only physically demanding but mentally demanding because the margin of error is so small, and he's one of those guys that can fit into that culture.
Yeah, that's really cool. And as far as you're looking at the competitive landscape of college football, and I'll talk college football for right now,
Sure.
and of course it extends past, but we've all been talking about the NIL and all that stuff this year. Do you feel like that now it's not just about winning on the field, but that all this other stuff you talked about has become so much more important for recruiting? And if so, what do you think is the landscape over the next 10 years of getting college high school students to come to Coastal Carolina that are great quality people?
Well, it's a very interesting landscape, and I would say I've said this many times, but probably the last 5 years we've seen more changes to the business model of college athletics, particularly at this highest level where we compete, than we probably saw in the previous 30 or 40. It's really kind of just been one wave after another of some type of either policy change, rule changes, maybe something that came out of the legal environment, many of which have great positive impacts for the student athlete, but it's changed the way that you really kind of have to go about doing business now. It's kind of assaulted and disrupted in a lot of ways, sort of the conventional way that we've gone about things. The NIL you mentioned is kind of the latest, boat to come down the stream. But 5 6 years ago, we were dealing with, should athletes receive cost of attendance stipends, which has really kind of just become a routine aspect now, but a costly one, for sure. And then you've had lawsuits like the Austin case in the Supreme Court last year that was a 9-0 decision. There aren't many of those out there that are 9-0, and what that created for being able to reward academic achievement and educationally related success with your athletes. So there's just so many things that are happening, and there's still a very active, if not volatile, legal environment right now that could reshape more as we go down the path. So I think you have to find the right balance. I think we've done a nice job of trying to be aggressive to the extent that we can in the NIL space, but we also have to remember that the NCAA still does have rules that govern that. So it can't be used as a recruiting inducement, which becomes very important within the transfer environment. And it's also not a pay-for-play. So there has to be some type of work or charitable, some type of obligation to earn the money, and that quid pro quo has to be in place. And that's a gray area in a lot of cases across the country right now. There's some federal legislation that's been proposed that we'll see where that goes, but that could perhaps create some standardization across the country. I personally would be in favor of seeing something like that. You've got a patchwork of state laws that don't necessarily mesh, which is one reason the law in South Carolina was suspended back in July, because it became too restrictive, really, for the schools within our state. So it's been a fascinating landscape, and I think we've got more upheaval and change to come.
Yeah, that's great insight there. I appreciate that. What did you think about last year's, and I'm talking about the students who are currently just came to the Coastal Carolina football team. We're midstream Coastal football season, so of the recruits, is there anybody you've had your eye on since you saw it and you're like, oh boy, watch out?
Yeah, it's hard to say. When we've got 540 plus athletes here, on our 19 teams, so you really are focused, I think, more on how everybody is developing. I've never been someone that gets too one way or the other with recruiting classes and stars and all that kind of stuff. I think our quarterback right now, Grayson's a perfect example of that.
Right.
It's all about starting out with the right kind of skill, and do you have the physical abilities to play at this level? So I think that's where a lot of coaches are going to start. But it's also, do you fit into the culture of the program? And I know that's something that's important when our coaches go out and recruit. So I don't know that there's anybody that I've particularly kept my eye on, but what I do know is that the talent level we have now is at the highest it's likely probably ever been.
Absolutely.
With not only the combination of success that we've had, the getting to this stage at FBS, because it does take some time. It takes some years to work your scholarship number up with the way the rules work, and we've really kind of matured into that now. But the one intangible is, you mentioned a guy like C.J. Brewer, and we saw this from guys like Silas Kelly and Teddy Gallagher, and on the offensive side, Javon Hiley and so forth. There's no, there's nothing that can kind of replace experience, understanding the system, and really knowing what you're doing on an individual basis. And those kinds of players are hard to replace. It takes some time. I think we're going to see this team get a lot better as the season goes along.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I've actually been pretty impressed, because I think coming into this year, one of the questions was, what does Grayson do when you see a Likely leaving and Hiley leaving?
Sure.
And I mean, big targets that did big things for Coastal, and what does he do this year? And I've been kind of excited to see him immediately start creating some connections with the Pinkneys of the world. And, you got Mobley catching touchdowns left and right. I mean, so it has been nice to see, and I think it solidifies him as a leadership quarterback and with a big future, hopefully, in the NFL. So as far as the sports atmosphere here at Coastal Carolina University, there are so many different things going on, and we talked a lot about football. And by the way, I'd be remiss to announce, to not talk about, Coastal's birthday is right around us now.
68th birthday, man.
68th birthday.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Today.
cool to think about how far this school has come, not just in the last 20 years of Coastal football, but in general. So proud time to be a Coastal Carolina Chanticleer for sure.
100%.
Right. But with you, and I mentioned that right now because you've been involved with so much of the athletics program, top to bottom. Tell me a little bit about, maybe what your favorite sport is by heart, and then maybe something that you think is great about Coastal Carolina sports.
Well, I played basketball. I didn't play in college, but that was something that I always enjoyed and always got a big boost out of. So it's kind of hard to pick one, but I always enjoyed calling basketball. I thought that's the first thing that I started calling play-by-play back in college. So that one kind of came pretty natural to me. But there's been a lot of great moments through the years, and when I was calling games, it afforded me so many opportunities, and also to see so many places. I've probably been the one person, of anyone who's worked on this campus in the last 25 years that had a chance to see so many other campuses. It's countless the number of places that our teams went and played. I've been to just about every state in the union,
Wow.
For that, including, off the mainland to Hawaii, where we've played multiple times in the past.
And let me stop there. I do have to ask this. Was there any campus that you've gone to? And of course, we're coastal people, all right? So what is the number 2 best campus? Let's put it like that you've been to.
I think you kind of classify them. So obviously you go to some of the the major legacy institutions. If we think of Power 5 and so forth, there's a lot of those that are very impressive out there. But I really think the key is that a lot of folks don't realize just how good we have it. From a lot of the places we've been, the newness of our campus, the uniformity of our buildings, our athletic facilities. It happens all the time where we go places and you can tell we're really fortunate to have what we have, or to have a game day atmosphere that we have, or whatever it is, because I've seen a lot of those, and you develop a lot of comparison. Now, if there's one location that stands out, we played baseball a couple of times back in the 2000s at Pepperdine, and it's a little bit hard to beat a view from their baseball stadium that overlooks the Pacific Ocean.
Wow,
in Malibu,
absolutely.
of all places, right?
Right.
So you kind of get yourself lost from following the game as you're supposed to, because you get kind of mesmerized, looking out. So some great places like that where there's incredible views and really, really beautiful campuses. But I think ours is right up there. I think we bring a lot of things to the table, and that's what I hope people can appreciate and understand from someone who's seen a lot of these places and seen how they function and how they operate, that we've got a lot of advantages. But I think we see that borne out in record freshman classes and the way that we've grown our enrollment. I think students figure those things out, and that's one reason why they end up coming here and and signing up. But yeah, it's been a great journey, having so many opportunities to travel and see places and follow our teams and then broadcast games back. We had a no-hitter back in 2009 that Cody Wheeler threw for our baseball team.
Wow, Cody Wheeler.
You
nice.
remember that
yeah,
name?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I've heard that name a long time.
I'm not sure how many people were listening because it happened in Hawaii at about 3 a.m.
right.
But it was, that's one of the great moments I can remember on the mic anyway. And actually had a chance to call 2 no-hitters. Anthony Mayo threw one in 2011 in the Big South tournament. So, how often do you get a chance to do that, regardless of what level it is? But to have called 2, and then obviously the College World Series and what we went through that year and the schools that we knocked off is something that I'll always cherish. That was an incredible lifetime moment.
Man, when you're watching a no-hitter develop, you talked about 2 there. Is there a point in the game as even a play-by-play announcer that maybe you're getting a little superstitious? I got to start the inning, because it's got to. Everybody's on the edge of their seat, right?
They are, and there's a couple of schools of thought. There's kind of the old school announcer. Don't bring it up. Don't talk about it until it happens, right? And then there's some now that they just go ahead and talk about it and just act like it's normal, and they don't get into the superstition part of it. I probably fall into the first category. I don't ever like to really say anything about it. In fact, the line that I used in that game that was actually at Hawaii is, I said as we went into the 9th inning, there's goosebumps and goose eggs.
Oh.
Which is kind of referring to it, but you're not. And then he ended up, getting through the inning and pulled it off. So, it's amazing to have had the opportunity to do that, and then to call the final 3 outs of the national championship game against Arizona, which got tight and very nervous.
That was a close one right there.
I mean, I got to tell you, one of the best things about a great play-by-play and commentary in general to me is when you're getting emotional because the fans are emotional, and to hear that emotion come out, sometimes it's amazing. You think back some of the famous calls in Major League Baseball history, and it comes out, and I think that's really cool. And by the way, one of my favorite things to watch during a no-hitter is the way that other players treat the pitcher, because usually he's the guy sitting on the end of the bench by himself. Nobody wants to jinx that thing, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're not getting involved at all.
They do not want any part of that. As far as other sports, I know you're a big baseball fan and basketball. What do you think has grown the most outside of football, maybe? What has been one of your proudest things to see grow at Coastal Carolina over the last 20 years, let's say?
Well, I do have a special feeling about the baseball program from this standpoint. When I started here, almost was about the same time Coach Gilmore started. He had coached a couple of seasons, but hadn't really gotten his team, going in the right direction yet. And it was the first season that I was here. Part of my job in media relations was actually to manage the stats and help and work the games for baseball in particular, do communications and promotions for them. I did the PA announcing at the games before we even really were calling any games on radio, right?
Yeah.
Did the PA announcing, do the scoreboard. I was kind of a jack of all trades, working the system upstairs. But I could see where he was taking our program. You could see the drive, and with him also being an alum of where the vision was. A lot of people will say about our national championship, I've had this question asked so many times, like, did you feel like that was just kind of a Cinderella fluke kind of thing, and it all came together? And you got to have some luck. There's no doubt about that. You have to have some baseball luck. But the answer that I always give folks is we were not surprised or daunted by the fact that we reached Omaha, because that's always been the goal. Like there's so much that we were already doing to reach Omaha. We hadn't maybe gotten the break we needed in the postseason all those years to physically get there, but the vision and the goal never wavered. And I think that was really the key that helped us finally get there and win it, and to become relevant as a national, program. And I could see that in the early days. And that first year I was here, they kind of started to turn the corner a little bit. They had a run in the conference tournament, got to the final championship game. We'd had some nice wins down the stretch. Then in '99, 43 wins. We won a big game on the road at Clemson that year when Kevin Schnall actually was a senior for us, who's now our associate head coach. So you could see the wheels starting to turn. So, and then eventually to have an ability to be the administrator that oversaw the baseball program and work on scheduling and, trying to uplift that part of what we were doing to get more of a national reputation. And then to see it all kind of come to fruition, it was really cool, to have had that type of role in it. So that's something that personally, really has meant a lot to me. But I think when you look across the board, we've been able to really compete in all of our sports. I think we've made an effort to compete. That's hard to do, when you're still limited in some cases by budget and resources. To be able to compete in everything we do has been, one of the things that I've been the proudest of. Last year we finished third in our conference's Commissioner's Cup race. We haven't finished lower than fourth since we joined the Sun Belt, wow. out of 12 schools, and now we have 14. So,
and that's something to be really proud of, Step
so
up
I
to the
think
Sun
the
Belt
consistency
like
across the board and what all of our sports have been able to do. And, each year we seem to reach a championship level in a collection of sports. And that's, that's something that I think says a lot to the coaches that we have, our athletes, and, and what our staff does to help promote success.
Do you feel that, all this winning has made recruiting easier? I mean, are we seeing more recruits coming just,
I think it always makes it easier.
Right.
When you're a national brand and you've had success, and, at the end of the day, I really firmly believe this. We can talk about NIL and all of the things that maybe are kind of cosmetic to college athletics now, but players still want to play and win. I mean, I really believe that for the vast majority of athletes, that's still the drive. They want to play at their best. They want to see how far they can go with their ability, and they want to be on winning teams. So if you have those ingredients first and foremost, you're going to be in the discussion. Yeah. And then a lot of the other things maybe are what kind of seals the deal, and you've got to be as strong as you can in those areas. But ultimately, if you've got programs going in the right direction, it's going to get you indoors.
I think that's amazing. I'm going to make my plug for any recruit thinking about coming to Coastal Carolina. Beautiful campus, beautiful weather.
Absolutely.
We got the beaches nearby. We got amazing coaches here. We got fans that are really passionate. I mean, I was on Twitter last night watching, and yes, I'm a Twitter guy. And, nobody is hardly, it feels like anymore, but I'm a Twitter guy. And I'm watching the fans who are just still cheering on C.J. Brewer like he plays here. Once you're Coastal, you're Coastal for life. Right. And I just feel like if I knew what I knew now, and I were looking at any school, Coastal's my school. There's no doubt about it. It's just a beautiful place to be.
Well, you think about it, when this stadium that we're looking at today was opened in 2003, and we beat Newberry in that first game, we had about 6,000 people in it. And now, it really kind of blows me away still, having had the perspective of watching all 20 years of our football program, that, people get upset when we have double and triple that.
Right.
So, sometimes I think we forget to celebrate the incremental and kind of where we're going. And, we're looking forward to even greater heights as we go down the road. That's
a great feedback there. So, I've spent a little bit of time getting to know Woody Woodall, and of course currently he's with CAF, and he's the director of major sponsorships and I think major donations, I guess it would be, and he's done such a great job with that so far, and I've heard him and how passionate he is about giving back to Coastal. Of course, famous baseball player from that collegiate World Series team. And it makes me think about the behind-the-scenes work, bringing people to Coastal that are, have loved Coastal Carolina, first of all, but, all that stuff that happens behind the scenes, what would be your comment on not just winning on the field, but, the things that people don't see every day that you're doing and that the staff is doing and how that plays a role?
Well, I think first off, you touched on what Woody does, and it's crucially important that we have resources. If we don't have those, we can't do the things that we want to do, and,
right.
and that's where the Athletic Foundation is our first line of defense in procuring those resources and getting us where we need to be. It's very important to have as much private investment as we can find to support what we do in athletics, and the needs only keep coming and growing, right? So, right. What they do, the CAF does, and Kelly and her staff is incredibly important. But it also underscores that, the folks that are out there, everybody kind of has a voice one way or another about what's happening with Coastal Athletics. But, turn that voice into something tangible. Turn that voice into a donation to the CAF or maybe a monthly contribution. It really doesn't matter what it is may work most comfortably for you, but anything can help us fulfill our mission and ultimately provide these athletes with what they need to succeed. And the more we can do that, we can make capital upgrades to the stadium. There's a lot of talk about here within our stadium, the audio visual aspect of what we have in the stadium. And trust me, I and our staff for years, that's number one on our list. But that takes resources, that takes capital investment. Those are not cheap projects. What we would like to do in here may be a $5-6 million project to provide a lot of those new things and that new technology. And there's a lot of ways we're going to pursue to try to do that, and have been pursuing for several years. But the easiest way is to get people on board with donating to the CAF. Maybe it's endowing a scholarship, maybe it's endowing a head coaching position. Whatever somebody feels like they want to get into, because that's what can take you to another level. It helps you be able to build things faster. It helps you be able to invest faster. When you have those funds on hand to be able to do it. So, that's something that I would underscore to anyone out there is give if you can to that organization primarily, because it'll help athletics get where we need to be. But you're right. I mean, there's so much that happens, under the surface, and we have a tremendous administrative staff, whether it's our compliance folks, our ticket office. In the last couple of years, we hired Van Wagner to be our multimedia rights holder, which was something that we really were unique in that we didn't have one. Just about every FBS school in the country had someone representing them as an MMR. And, we finally felt like the time was right to go out of house. And it's been a great move. And that's a company that's done a lot of tremendous things for us in the past year. I think they've raised our sponsorship investment by double almost.
Wow.
And I think they added like 47 new sponsors this year. When you look around this region at close to 50 billboards that are branded with sponsors, whether it's the Bow Box now at Bojangles and things like that. That's
Love
a direct result of the resources and the really the human labor they're able to provide to that effort that maybe we can't. So it takes all pieces, but it's something that every day we've got folks that are working 9-10 hours a day, and with everything that happens on the weekends, not just football. We may have soccer matches. In spring season, you've got baseball and softball playing at the same time, along with tennis and beach volleyball. And all of those games have to be managed. There has to be oversight. We have to be prepared to deal with issues that may come up. So our staff puts in an inordinate amount of hours, and they should be appreciated for that.
And it's such a great staff here. And, I don't just say that because I graduated from here, because I get to spend time with you guys. It's just amazing seeing what we've done here and the leadership from the top to the bottom. And obviously going back to the CAF with Kelly Moore and that team, it's a smaller team than some schools have, and they're getting more done. It's amazing.
And that's actually something that we've been lauded for. I want to bring up I think it was maybe 2018 or 19. Texas A&M has in its graduate program for sport management, they do something called the Excellence in Management Cup, and they actually have a formula, and a academically certified process they go through that takes a look at the budgets that FBS schools spend, commensurate with how well they succeed. And we've won that cup. It sits on my mantle in my office, and we were the champion of that one year, which basically said what you just said. We're getting more bang for our buck. We're getting more out of the resources that we have. So that's again why it's so important to invest, because think of what we could do if we did have a little more, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, Matt, as we come to the last few minutes of the show, you're a pro sports fan too, or
absolutely?
So
I'll watch anything just about.
So this is going to be my rapid fire. I'm just going to do a couple quick ones. Greatest baseball player of all time.
I'd have to go with. I'm a Braves fan, so I'm gonna go Hank Aaron.
Boy, well you can't go wrong with Hank Aaron. The true home run king, we might call him. I mean, I don't want to get too political here, but all right. So how about football? Best football player of all time. Ooh. That's gonna be a tough one because now you're gonna start thinking quarterback. Rob, we talking running back.
I tell you, it's hard to go against Brady.
Brady is, I almost look at it like this. If you talk about greatest quarterbacks of all time, for sure, Brady. I always think the greatest receiver. You almost have to, you feel like you have to break down football like this. But greatest receiver, Jerry Rice. These are guys who are no doubters, right? Like they made it so far above, you almost can't even debate it, right?
Yeah, and I think also you have to think of it in terms of what was the relevance, right?
Yeah.
So you look at a guy like Jim Brown, when he came along, when he did his efforts within the social fabric, you can maybe put him in that category.
Right.
So it's,
absolutely.
There's a lot of parameters that you look at.
One other one then. So I'll finish up with favorite basketball player of all time. You have one?
Favorite basketball player? I'd kind of maybe skew toward Jordan because I just loved his competitiveness.
Yeah. Famously competitive.
Yeah. But there's probably one or two out there if I thought about it longer that I enjoyed watching. They're not coming to mind right now, but I don't know that I want to completely just hand it off to MJ.
I totally understand. And by the way, being a Braves guy, you as far as great pitchers of all time, one of my favorites to watch is Greg Maddux. And I'm sorry, right now I'm definitely fanboying out here. I go with a. But Greg Maddux, you can watch this guy pitch, and 2 hours later the game's over. He didn't throw. He really was. Very, very cool.
Didn't throw hard, just knew how to pitch, which is interesting because that's kind of an art that today's baseball is kind of lost.
Yeah, it really has.
It's all about the hard throwers.
Absolutely, and getting your surgery after you've been throwing too hard for too long. Yeah, that's what they do. Well, Matt, as we wrap with the last thoughts, what do you think is next for Coastal? I mean, do you have any kind of like final thought that you would give the fans that are out there just want to know a little bit more?
Well, I think number one, again, we've got to be aggressive at procuring resources because our league now just got a lot tougher. When we added the 4 schools which provide tremendous benefits to us, it got stronger, and it got stronger in virtually every sport. James Madison comes in. They won a women's lacrosse national championship a couple of years ago, and went to the softball College World Series final. Old Dominion comes in, which has always for years had a strong basketball program and brings football to the table and a lot of other sports that they're strong in. So we've got to understand that and realize that we'll have to keep moving. If we don't keep moving and if we don't keep changing and getting better, it can stagnate on you very quickly. And that means you've got to have those ancillary resources that athletes expect in the recruiting battle, as you pointed out. You've got to continue to be looking at facilities. We'd like to take a hard look at a practice facility for our basketball programs. That from a logistics standpoint, not a lot of people realize it, but that's one of the biggest challenges we have is being able to coordinate practice, not so much games, but practice with 2 basketball programs and a volleyball program. So to be able to give them areas where they can get done what they need to. It also it helps you with class schedules and that sort of thing as well. So we've done a really good job in the last decade or so of getting our competitive facilities up to a really high level where we actually play our games. But we've got to start looking at those supporting resources, the practice facilities, the weight rooms, all those type of things, because what's happened is you've got a trend where sports are kind of enclave to their playing facility. That's where they want their weight room to be. That's where they want their team lounge to be. It's all concentrated to that location. And we've started doing some of that, but we've got to be able to move forward and address some of those needs. So that's the capital side of it. And then obviously just being able to provide as many resources as we can for our athletes, because they compete now in probably one of the more turbulent times in college athletics than ever. There's a lot out there and a lot of pressures on them.
Wow. He said, keep moving, keep changing, keep getting better. I think if we all do that, we will be better people, better schools, better businesses. So very, very good sage words by Matt Hogue. Matt, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Guys, I really appreciate this. This has been fun. Thank you for all that you do.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure as always. And for my co-host, Denielle Van Dyke, Cobi, thank you guys for being on again. This has been Rob Clemons with Crown and Connections Teal Talk. We'll see you guys next time.